Alright, example 5. In this one we're going to take a look at materials and how to shade objects. So as we know, we've been using this like test rubber toy for a while, and it already has a shader on it. We kind of want to go ahead and delete that for now. So we're going to use an attribute delete. Since the material is actually an attribute on this, it gets sampled through an attribute called shop underscore material path. And it's a primitive attribute. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that attribute with the attribute delete. I'm just going to sample it like that. So this is the current render, and if you render it now, it doesn't have the material anymore. It's simply clay shaded or clay render like that. So that's perfect. We still have a lighting setup, which is going to give us like a pretty cool result, I guess. But yeah. So we have no shader on this right now. And we're going to go ahead and add one. So how do we add a material to this? Well, first of all, we need to see where we can create our materials and how do we create them in Houdini. You can do it in a context called shop. You can either add like this, like a context like this, or you can go to here. As we know, we have object, we have out, and then we have shop here. If we go here, this is our material area where we can create materials and stuff. The most common one is Mantra surface. This is just the standard one with diffuse, reflection, refraction, subsurface, emission, and all the standard things you would find on any like V-Ray shader or whatever. There's multiple shaders here. If you go, just hit tab and go like to drop downs. There's utility, surface, procedural shaders, materials. There's a pyro shader for shading volumes. We're gonna focus on this now though. So in this mantra surface, we need to add it onto our object. So on the Geo1, which is the rubber toy, let's call it toy, and let's call this grid. Yes, we know. So on the toy, we want to go to the materials tab, and in materials we can drop down our material. So in the shop, we want to find a mantra surface 1. We can actually define a name on this. So let's say toy material, like that, and voila. You could also do it inside on SOP level. You can do a material node, like that. If you have multiple things inside of here that you want to have different shaders on. But that's only if you have that. Otherwise, you can do it on here on the geometry level and add it to material here. So on here, we want to go to this. You can, if you want to go somewhere in another network, you can always click this like little arrow here. That will always take you to where this object lives. So in the shop context, we have the material here. If we go ahead and render now, it's not going to look like this anymore. It's going to be a gray color, like this, and it's also going to have reflection to it. So this shader is by default, it has the base diffuse color value of 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. I'm gonna do a red color like this. I'm gonna, yeah, that's all I'm gonna do in diffuse, to be honest. You can adjust the intensity and roughness and stuff of the diffuse, but we're not gonna do that now. In reflection, you can always add reflections. You can colorize them, define the intensity of it, of the reflection, the roughness, and stuff like this. And in the reflect coat, that's like a secondary reflection. I'm not gonna handle it now. Refraction is for, yeah, well, refractive surfaces, to be able to have photons travel through the material, such as water, liquids, honey, glass, whatever. Subsurface is scattering, shallow scattering, such as skin or fruits or candles or something like that. Emission is when it emits lights, and opacity is just opacity of the object, basically. Then we have bump and normals. I am actually not going to do bump and normals for now. I'm going to add some displacement instead. Bump and normals is basically just a fake displacement. It's not actually there. It's not in 3D. It's simply in the shader. Displacement, however, does actually displace the geometry. So we're gonna add some displacement noise. We're gonna drop down the amplitude to 0.2. And we're gonna go ahead and render this and see what it looks like. So remember, this material is now on this object here. And as we can see, if you zoom in, it now has a lot of displacement and the color red on it. Let's see what else we can do here. Some fun things. Let's put on some refraction and see what happens. Whoa, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, this turned into a glass object now. But if we lower the intensity of the refraction, see what happens. Now we just have a slight refracting. Let's put 0.5, see what happens. Yeah, that looks really weird, but yeah, let's not do that. Let's see if we can do some emission. Always gonna emit light. Opacity, if you drop it down, you can see that it became opaque, like that, like a ghost almost. I don't know, but that's not what we're gonna do. Another thing that is really important as well is that the diffuse can actually pick up the colors from the point level, the CD attribute. But you have to check the use point color. So now we have a base color here. We have kind of defined a color on the shader. But if we want to, we can actually go to the object. We can add a color with a color node here. Like that. We can define this to be blue. We can go back to our material and we can uncheck the use base color, and it's simply going to use the blue color from the CD attribute. Or we can go ahead and use color, and it will actually multiply in between these colors, which actually looks really nice on this one. I don't know, I like this shading right now. It looks pretty cool. But yeah, that's how you can use those. You can also use packed colors or a map, like a map here. I'm actually gonna grab a map really quick and we're gonna see how it looks. 1 second. So if we're gonna use the map here, we're gonna uncheck use point color and check use map, and I'm gonna copy in mountain rock dark texture here, and it's actually gonna load in the map of the texture. I'm gonna lower the displacement a little bit so we can see the map better. And there we go. As you can see, we now have like a kind of a neat texture on this guy. That's quite cool. Yeah, what else can we do? Let's see. So it looks like kind of rock dude now. Let's go ahead and increase that a little bit. Yeah, and most of these things you can actually use maps for, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of how materials work in a really basic way. But again, this is just the beginning of it. You can actually unlock this, and this is when the real deal starts, because you can actually dive into these. And here is everything you need to create. You can create whatever you want in here. You can do some really, really crazy, creative, and amazing things in here with VOPs, basically. But I probably won't dive into this too much in this course, unfortunately, because it's a little bit of a course, and that's a little bit, it's almost its own thing, so that's too much. But yeah, but this is how materials works. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.